welcome to yet another episode of Be Free, Be Fun, Be Fearless. I am Dr. Rana Al-Falaki, founder of Light Changes Coaching, and of course your host for today. So my guest today is a wonderful, wonderful woman, Mary Pagano. Now, Mary has had over 20 years experience and background in tech. She's been a VP for Fortune 30 companies, including Motorola, just to name one of some massive, massive ones. She's worked in the corporate world, been very successful, very high up, but in her own words, she kind of felt she'd had enough of the boys' club. So what do we mean by that? Well, we are going to be talking about her transition into the world of female empowerment. But this is not just girl power. Yes, you can do it. As you're soon going to find out, this goes to a much, much deeper level. So we're going to talk to Mary about her story, why she does it, what she does it, and about two key areas, one Hera and one about Fem Foundry. But I'm going to let her tell you all about that. So hi, Mary.
Hello, darling. How are you? Good to be here.
It's so good to have you. It's so good to have you. So tell me, fed up of the boys' club?
Oh yeah. I can. I was very fortunate to work for Motorola that had a big focus on diversity in the 90s, and so women were really important to get them into the organization and get them promoted. But the challenge is that I was the only woman in the room. And so it was difficult. It was really tough. Men didn't know quite exactly how to behave. I lived through the meetings at the strip clubs, right? So it was the early years of women at the table, and it was tough. There weren't very few females that I could go to get some advice and direction. I had a tendency to be the female leader that mentored other women, but there really wasn't. I didn't have a female mentor, so I had a male mentor, which was a little bit different. So, but it was the 10,000 razor blade cuts. I have them. Right? It's the little things that, you're not invited to the golf outing where a lot of business is done, right? Or you might mention something at the table and it goes unnoticed. And then a guy will repeat exactly what you said. And all of a sudden it's a brilliant idea.
I know that one very well.
All the time. And finally, I worked a few of my male champions and said, can you support me and so then some of them would say, yes, I like that idea when Mary mentioned it 30 minutes ago. So, you just have to kind of work it. I heard a cute story too about when Obama was president. Some of the women in his staff, they would immediately support each other so that it got elevated, because sometimes he unknowingly, might throw something out the window. So I think it's really important that the women get united and support each other, because sometimes the men just don't know when they're stepping on it, right? And a lot of times women will just let it go unnoticed because they don't want to make a big deal about it. But it starts to add up. It starts to add up on your self-confidence. So you've got to find ways to be able to, be heard and be respected. And so, but anyway, I kind of got to the point, like some of the games were, they take your email and edit it and pass it on. And that, and when you don't even know it, right? So I finally just said, I'm tired of these battles. I'd rather do something much more important to be able to help women all over the world and the planet. And to me, that is the biggest, before I slide into home plate, I want to make sure that I have really done something impactful to help other women. I mean, I know what I've been through, and it's been a difficult, road. I know a lot of other women who have had way more difficult roads, in this path of trying to be independent. And so I feel very strongly about helping them all over the world, because 51% of the population is female. So it's about time that we had 50% of women at the table. And so, that's why I'm so excited about Kamala Harris right now becoming a VP. It's a crack in the ceiling, right? So I'd like to really poke all the way through, but I think we've got some work to do. And that's why I feel very, very strongly about the projects that I'm working on and what I'm doing. So I jumped off the corporate ship. I had done some work with some startups and things like that along the way as well in tech. But for me, it's now all my focus is on this because it makes me happier. I have less stress. I'm making a huge difference, and that makes me happier. And so anyway, that's why I did it.
Would you say that, I mean, how do you overcome, I mean, obviously you're clearly passionate about what you're doing, and therefore there was a real driver for you to take that jump,
Right.
and you're loving what you're doing now. But of course there will be a lot of blocks for some people of, well, yeah, I am passionate about that, but I still need a paycheck, and there's an element of feeling very secure in what you're doing and not knowing how to make that transition. What advice would you give to people to overcome that?
Well, you know what? It is scary. It is scary. And when I left GE, I thought I'm done. I do not want another corporate job. And I decided I'm going to take some time off, do some traveling, and see where it leads me, and just relax. Because when you're in the throes of things, and here in the States, we only get 2 weeks of vacation a year. That's not a whole lot of time to have downtime to think about how you want to live. And quite frankly, we were put on this planet to live, not to work. I mean, really. So we've all been kind of, hypnotized and, focused on, material things in life, that's the sign of success and all this other kind, but it makes a lot of people miserable. So during my travels, and because I was in such an open state, right, of let's just see what comes forward, things started to come forward that I was like, oh, wow. And it was also in regards to meeting new people. And COVID is like the perfect time to meet a lot of people. I mean, it's brilliant. I mean, we met on a networking group. How many networking? There's so many of them right now. And it's such a brilliant way. And if you stop and listen to other people instead of yakking all the time, you'll hear things that'll go, ooh, I'm interested in that. I'm going to talk to that person and learn more. So the big important thing is to be open, listen, and then what you love can come forward to you. You'll find it that way, right? You don't have to go out hunting for it like a mad dog, right? If you just keep yourself open and ask yourself, what are those important things that how you want to live your life, right? Where do you want to live, right? Who do you want to surround yourself with? What are new things that you'd like to learn? And as you start to make that list and you streamline it, then as you're going out and venturing and meeting new people, right? I mean, sure, you got to have the job to pay the bills right now as you're doing that, but you can take that time to look outside and do something bigger than yourself. Sometimes we're so narrowly focused on the money, 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 money. And I did that for years, trust me. I mean, I was a finance major with a bunch of sisters who were engineers. I mean, I was surrounded by engineers. My father, you name it, my, men in my life, everybody. And so I felt this big compared to them, right? And so my focus was how do I make tons of money? And hence I ended up into, being sales VP. And that was my focus.
Yeah, exactly. And actually it can be very, very difficult for people to think, but I need the money, I need the money. And we're not saying the money isn't important, and but the money will often come if it's not, because if you focus on just the money, then that creates a sense of need, it creates an energy for need, and it creates a sense of lack. And actually it's actually much harder work. It's much easier to just let it come in. But I love what you said about being open. And this is, of course, this is about gaining in consciousness and raising your vibe, because it's like you said, you do make the list. You're setting the intentions. You're asking the questions. But instead of force, you just by being open, by being curious, By
Exactly.
approaching life with curiosity, you become open to opportunities. You hear things that you wouldn't have heard before, because when you're so busy and you're so distracted all the time, there isn't any time
Yeah.
to have a meaningful conversation with somebody, because you've got this massive to-do list that you're trying to get through. And therefore, how much richer could your life be if you approached it with some curiosity and some openness, which of course is all about, that's the exact type of coaching that I do. Is, okay, let's see how we can make you open. No one's saying you just have to visualize and affirm, because that doesn't work. You have to take actions, as you took actions, but you took guided actions in that you were open, and ultimately things led you there, right?
There's another little element that I think is just really adorable, is go back to your being a child. Because when we were children, right, we were so open and available to everything, and we just wanted to have fun and play. Well, it's the same kind of thing. Take yourself back to your child. It's okay to be there and to embrace that, because that, your curiosity was off the charts, right? And at some point there was something that you really loved and you loved doing, but you kind of forgotten about it. You kind of moved away from it. You got married, you had kids, you started working, and you have to be responsible, and stop and play.
It's
you
so
know
true. Yeah, engaging the engaging the inner child, and feeding it and nourishing it, because it's always there, and there's no reason why we can't have fun. And you can multitask. I have a whole chapter in my book about how can you multitask to make time for fun.
yes, yes,
Actually, let's find your other values in your life, and let's weave some fun and enjoyment into it, because it's like you said, we're here in this world to live,
yep,
and this experience should be enjoyable. Yes, we learn, and often, unfortunately, we learn from the pains more than the pleasures, but there's no reason why you can't enjoy it. And to enjoy it is to be, as I keep saying, is to be in joy, which is in
yes,
that state of higher flow.
yes. Sometimes the universe will kick you in the rear. And when you're in this space of nothing's working out, everything is negative, and you're like, you're really in a miserable state. I mean, it's kind of like you've put yourself there, and you need to get out of it. And sometimes the best way to do that is just morning and night. As soon as you wake up or right before you go to bed, you start talking about what you're grateful for, and just continue down that path of, I'm grateful for my brain. I'm grateful for my parents. I'm grateful for where I live. Just continue to do that day and night. And what it does, it also helps to train your brain so that you don't have the opportunity for the negativity to come in, because it will. I mean, it's like this little devil that wants to continuously try to cut you down. And we are our own worst enemy. So as soon as you can start to help train this as well, to think positively and to look for the positive in everything. I mean, obviously we have to have a bit of realism, right? I mean, but you know when you're in a happy state, when you feel good, and whether it's from waking up and doing a little bit of a jiggle, a dance, or sing at the top of your lungs when you turn on that cold shower, right? When you're in that state.
Even in my bathroom.
No, but I do it all the time. It's like, okay, here we go. Are you ready? I turn on the cold shower because I just want to get my heart and everything going, and then I'm singing. I'm forced to sing because it's like, oh, 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 we're so cold. But I mean, it gets your blood, and sometimes I would force myself to laugh. Like I had some days at Motorola that were pretty tough, and in my car, I would force myself to laugh just to get the endorphins out, to change my space.
Absolutely. It was
Or I drove
interesting.
white
I was
light over me.
having a conversation with a fellow colleague who's not non-coach, so it's from my dental background, and he was saying to me, I've got such a positive mindset, and I was trying, so I don't need this help, and I was trying to explain to him, mindset is just the tip of the iceberg. He said, oh, that sounds intriguing, because you use the word state, and that's exactly what it is. It is a state of energy. Mindset is kind of that entryway between the destructive, where we feel angry, helpless, victim-like, and then we start to put a positive spin on things, which is the mindset bit. but really it's the gateway to then go elevating yourself up to these states, because mindset says exactly that. It's about how you think. So sometimes we have to put a positive thought there to make us feel better. But when you elevate to a state of being,
yes,
which is being grateful, being abundant, being kindness, being love, being in flow, being curious. When we get to that point, it just resonates within us, and we feel, again, it's the feelings, not thought, we feel powerful.
yes.
And we feel like everything is possible. We become limitless, which of course is the awakening process of consciousness.
And there's so much abundance out there for everyone. It's all there to be had.
And you know, that's a beautiful point to bring in, because I know you and I had a previous conversation, and you touched on it very briefly a little while ago, where we were talking about women elevating women. And I know you and I were having this conversation when we were very much on the same pathway. It's nothing to do with being men haters. It's nothing to do with that whatsoever. It's actually, like you said, we're 51% of the population. Why do we give ourselves a hard time? And one of the reasons that is a barrier to our success is often, we're comparing ourselves to men, and we're trying to be men to succeed, instead of realizing that we have so many of our own assets, powers, abilities, our ability to multitask, our ability to use our intuition, our levels of emotional intelligence are through the roof. And why don't we use those strengths? So we're not competing. And why don't we help each other instead of the abundance piece, instead of seeing each other as competition?
Exactly. You know what? I call that the queen bee syndrome, right? And I lived through that as well in my corporate years, which is really sad. You know, I think that a woman who has been successful has to bring other women with her along the way, and those that don't and make others stumble, I think is just absolutely ridiculous. You need to be able to adjust a woman's crown and not tell anybody about it, right? So it's really about uh, when you have more women supporting each other, helping them, because it's a different. I did manage like a man, and it was difficult, but that's, I had to be one of the boys to kind of be included, to be, to survive. And I remember a therapist telling me, you need to do this job as a woman. But I struggled with that. Like, how do I do that? Because it's, EQ. But I was doing it because my EQ was what was making me so successful. Because, you know, I treated customers the way that I wanted to be treated. And it's not just about capture the revenue, it's also about taking really good care of the customers, because then the revenue is even bigger. And sometimes the boys manage very short term, like, let's do whatever we can to get this business in. We might have just angered the customer, but we got the business in the short term. Whereas women would think a little bit more longer term of, how do we keep them really happy and satisfied? Maybe we don't get as big of the order now, but we'll get 5 years of really great business. And that happened quite often. And I didn't understand that at the time, that that's what I was doing. But it's fascinating to see how, men and women coming together, collaborating and working together, we can do so much better than we are today, because it's a lot of short term and really driven by the market, right? There's a lot of short term thinking. And I think women understand, because we're nurturers, we raise kids, we take care of family, we take care of community, we think longer term. And we think about everybody in the mix. And so I think as we go forward and we come out of this year of 2020, right, it's going to be even more important, because we're against a time clock here to save the planet as well. So I think there has to be a transition of making really smart decisions for everybody and not just a few. And I think women bring that element, and I think that's even makes it even more important for them to be at the table and being part of those decisions.
Absolutely. Tell us about Hara.
Oh yes. So I ran into Marinella Mapuri. She's from Portugal. She was a female. Well, yeah, she's a female. She's a CEO of NetJets, and then she for Europe, and she sold it to Warren Buffett, and decided she wanted to get into philanthropy. Well, she kind of had been with their family because they had Mapuri Foundation and very focused on clean water in the ocean, and they do boat races and things of that nature. And they also do some things in the arts. But she wanted to do something for females in regards to really uplifting them. And she kind of did informally over the years. But she and I were talking. She was wanting me to come on the board. I'm like, well, there's a lot of women organizations. I'm not so sure. And then she said, well, we're building a city. And I said, ooh, a city. So, I'm from the tech world, and smart cities, intelligent enterprise, all that kind of, game changing stuff I did. And so I was like, city would really put women on the map. If you could create a city for the future of humanity where it's really green. I mean, let women be a part of that decision making for the city. We do it for the kitchen and the house, right? But let us do it for the city, because we're raising the kids. We got schools to deal with. We got workplace, the whole community. So, and also make it very green, like gardens in everybody's community, free fruits and vegetables, right? I mean, there's a really great way to do this. And most of the cities today are very focused on tech, smart cities. I had a conversation with the head of smart cities for the UN, and she says, Mary, I love your template. We would love to take this global. And I said, well, right now we got to get the first one done. That's what's important to us. So, and Hera is also about helping women get an education, own their own home in their name, and to make a living. So we're really focused about some actions. We feel like there's a lot of talk. There's been a lot of talk for a long time. And I think now we need to bring women together to help each other. And so at the end of the year, we're announcing Hera Perfume, where all the proceeds will go to the projects that we're working on. And then the city, we're still negotiating with a few countries on that land space. So we're talking to the King of Morocco, France, India. So until we find that land, we thought we had one in France, but found out the army owned the land. So we had a bit of a hiccup, but we'll get there. I know we'll find it. COVID has kind of slowed us down in that regards just a bit, because we can't get out and go everywhere that we want to go. So we've got a number of really cool initiatives that are going on. One of our partners is Geoversity, and Nathan Gray is the CEO of Geoversity. He took a dead jungle in Panama, and within 10 years revived it, where there's rivers and trees and everything. And so Hera's going to build a conference center, a biocultural conference center there on his land there. So we're doing several little kinds of projects like that around the world, but there'll be one city. So so that piece, I'm really excited. We're developing a Hera TV channel so we can start to collect information from different women in regards to how they want to see the city be. And so there's a lot of work. And
what's the idea behind the city? Is it that it's a safe haven, or a place of opportunity for women to go to? Is it a place where only women will be able to enter? I mean, how does it work when you say it's a city for women? Because we're talking a real one rather than a virtual one, right?
Yeah, no, this is a real one. So very good question, because this city is not just for women. It's for all religions, all nationalities, all genders, families. It's going to be a regular city as we know it, but very diverse. And we want to honor all of that. But we'll have three major buildings that will have some focus in regards to the feminine. So the conference center, which is going to be quite huge knowledge hall, and where we can have conferences and symposiums and all kinds of things. There'll be a museum that's going to be focused on past, present, and future of women and works of women. So it'll be there's a lot of very famous women that people just don't know about. And in many cases, they called themselves anonymous because a woman wouldn't have been, it wouldn't have been credible if you had a woman's name next to it. So those are those kinds of stories that we want to be able to tell and share. And then the university is going to focus on the studies on the future of humanity. So there'll be tech, but we don't want we don't want to create tech for bad. We want tech for good, and how we progress, and also in regards to Mother Earth and the planet and all those kinds of things. So we have a observatory going on right now in Kashkai, beautiful palace there, and there's some thinkers that have gathered, and they're developing the curriculum for the university now. So that started, we started that in May. And Yeah, so it's going to be a regular city, but really green and tech used wisely, and with an honor of the women. A lot of women will be in the decision making of how the city will be. So we'd like it to be a huge visit card for whatever country decides to take it on. And we want women all over the world to be able to come and see it and be there and participate. So almost like I don't know, like a Mecca for women. I don't know if that's the right description, but
I get that. Yeah, because that's a pilgrimage, really. But yeah, it's a combination of that plus a almost I see it becoming a kind of a must too. You must go and visit this place once in your lifetime.
exactly. And so that's really important to us. So and obviously the land has to be special. And so that makes it a little bit more challenging. We don't want to take over another place and revamp it. We want, raw, beautiful land. And so, and you need quite a bit of that for a city, and you need the right roads to get there and access to the airport. So we evaluate all that as we're making our decisions. So.
And the name?
Hera?
Mm.
Hera City.
Yeah, but where does that name come from?
Oh, I should know this, and I don't. Isn't that terrible? I'm sure it has to do with Greek goddess woman or something. But I'm sure if you Wikipedia that you'd
I'm
find
gonna
out.
have to. I'm gonna have to, and then I'm gonna put it in the notes.
Good, thank you. Well, I should know this. I should know this.
And then
And then our partner, we've brought in Fem Foundry as our strategic partner. And I'm so excited about Fem Foundry. So
yeah, so let's talk about Fem Foundry, because this is the other big chunk of Mary now. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So on my travels, this is such a funny story. On my travels of my, openness and being available for everything, I met Beverly Knight at Juicy Oasis. She's a very famous singer in London or in Europe.
Soul singer, amazing, beautiful voice.
Her voice is, oh my gosh. She, you know what, Whitney Houston doesn't even have a chance against her. So anyway, she had invited me to one of her, when she was singing with Botticelli, and after dinner, we went to dinner afterwards, and she was telling me about Fem Foundry. They were working on it. It hadn't been announced yet, and said, oh, we'd love to have you on this platform. And, we need women in tech. And so anyway, so I met Amy and the co-founder, and we started discussing about Fem Foundry, what she was doing with it. And I finally then, I think after 6 months of working with Fem Foundry, because I actually knew Fem Foundry before I knew Hera, right? Mm-hmm. And as I was working Hera and Fem Foundry separately, I started envisioning, ooh, I see something that could be really cool here. And in regards to taking a social, so it's a social media, a mobile platform, right? So think Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, with podcasting and TV, but for women only. So safe and secure, where you can talk about whatever you want. You don't have to be worried about being stalked or whatever. And women, and a place for women to support each other and mentor each other. And so, and also what we're doing is working with all the female organizations around the world to join the platform, have their own space, with all their information, have their own group feed to chat and do whatever they want within their group, but they also can meet other women around the world from different groups. So that way we become not so isolated, and not all these different little, queen organizations, right? Where we come together and become more united. And then they can recruit, and women could belong to 2 or 3 or 4 organizations, but also a place for women who own their own businesses to also be able to promote. So we have it categorized by, like lifestyle or STEM or health, or so you can be part of certain discussions, but then you also have your groups, where you can participate in several female organizations. But I think it's really important now more than ever that women are more united and supporting each other, because we have to get this work done. We have to be at the table. We don't have time anymore, right? We really don't. And it's really important for us to mentor, bring other women along, and get our ideas at the table, especially as we're coming out of COVID. So I'm very excited about it.
What do you think would happen if that vision didn't happen? Because you say it's very important. What's the other side?
The other side is kind of what we're living with, right? I mean, here we are in this COVID state. And if you notice, all the countries that are managed by women are kind of like through it, done with it, managed it very well. So I just think that we'll continue down a path of everything is about money, and like we have immigrants and children in cages in the States. I mean, what is it? It's crazy. So I just think that we'll have more of that. And that's why we need more and more, you know, women at the table who are strong EQ, are compassionate about kids and family and community. Money is important, but it shouldn't be the only reason that we do things on this planet.
I was going to just add that, but also understanding that compassion doesn't make you weak.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, if you really look at you evaluate your life, if you make a list of 100 things that make you happy, right? And you went through that exercise, I guarantee you they would be really small things, like sitting on the terrace having my coffee, right? Uh, Walking out the house with a brand new lipstick. I mean, it would really be small things, or, you know, bedtime reading with my children, right? I mean, if you really looked at the things and you went through and exhausted yourself of things that make you happy, you would find that it's mostly about living. It's not about the, you know, brand new dress, or it's not about the millions in your checking account, right? I mean, money does give you some freedom to be able to do more things that you'd like to be able to do, but at the end of the day, I don't know. I've lost both my parents, and I can tell you, I mean, my father never mentioned anything about his career or his work. It was always like a very special memory that, he would spit out having to do with something with the family or his wife or whatever. So we'll all be there. We'll all be in that spot one day. And so, did you really live the life that you truly wanted to live? Or did you just kind of survive?
Mm-hmm.
Did you just kind of, you know, get so busy doing all kinds of stuff that you thought made you important? Important to who, right?
Because ultimately it's about your experience as a as a spiritual being, not living a human experience, and what is that experience going to entail. And it's funny when you were talking about those visuals. Yeah, I was at an adventure park with my kids the other week, and to see my youngest is 8 years old, the other two are nearing teens or in their teens, so they're a miserable phase. But this 8-year-old, my God, we were on these swings that fly high up in the sky. So, being the inner child, I mean, I love that kind of thing. So I had a big smile on my face. But oh, my heart just sang to see his smile. It was like I say, that childful glee, that of just pure joy, and it just filled me. And I thought, and it was just a reminder, because I've been so busy working, and obviously for me work doesn't feel like work anyway, because I'm so passionate about it, but and it's my purpose. But just to see that smile was just a reminder, you're not going to have this forever. Make the most of this while you can. And I have these conversations with people, and the commonest phrase is, yeah, I know I should, yeah, you're right. And how often do we hear, after a bereavement, for example, people suddenly step up a gear and they reevaluate their life of what's important, but then they get busy again.
Yeah.
And the priorities drop again.
Yes.
And as women, of course, we have, we have multiple jobs to do. We're usually bringing in money, contributing to a household. A lot of the time we may be a mother. If we're not a mother, then we're a child, because then we may be looking after our parents at the same time and taking on that role. We're looking after and running a household, whether we're on our own or with somebody. It's multiple jobs. And somewhere you have to find some time for yourself.
Exactly. And I'm not a parent, but and I could not have done the jobs I did. Was I a parent? I know that. And today, my heart goes out to parents, mothers who are working, single mothers who are working. Oh my gosh, it just rips my heart apart, which makes it another reason why I want women to be paid dollar per dollar like men are, because they're raising the children and they are not. But it's, I've even been told sometimes I didn't get a bonus because I was single, right? And because I wasn't a man with a family. So, those are crazy times that shouldn't exist, right? So, but I'm very passionate about women trying to do everything, because it's hard. They multitask, and then they start to feel guilty, like, I wasn't with my kid enough, I missed his play, but my boss is telling me I got to go do this. And it takes a lot of guts sometimes to say, to your boss, I can't go because I really need to take care of my, and they mentally chalk it up, and I want them to stop doing that, and it's, but there's good bosses and bad bosses, right? And if you get a good boss, oh my gosh, stay with them, because there are bad leaders and they can make your life miserable, and sometimes it's a job that you might even love. So that makes it difficult, right, to be able to manage all that, because it plays games with your head, especially mothers, because women are so conscious that they want to do such a great job. Once again, a guy will take a job not ever having done it before, have no clue, but he'll say, I can do this, I'm perfect, I'm your best candidate. And a woman who's probably done it 10 times would say, oh, well, I don't know if I can do, what's up with that? We have got to quit doing that. Really.
Yeah, you have to be prepared to sell yourself. And boundaries, again, it's the two elements of that, but obviously part of creating boundaries is learning those communication skills and actually enforcing them as well. But understanding boundaries and being prepared to express them. And it's like you say, and actually it's not only the not feeling guilty that you might need to prioritize your family or your husband or your home or your child, but actually get to the point where that is just acceptable and that is the norm. And you do such a good job anyway to help somebody recognize that it doesn't mean you're not going to be doing your job just because you have to leave half an hour early. So how do you learn those boundaries and those communication skills? And it's funny because everything you're touching on, actually, funnily enough, is everything that I teach in my 1 year Breathe program, because that's exactly what it is. Part of it is teaching you how to do it, and the other part is coaching you. But the word says exactly that. It's breathe, breathe, restore, and tap into higher energy. But in that, we need to learn to communicate. We need to have boundaries. If we really want to be able to just stand out on the patio and watch the sunrise just for a minute, and just without feeling guilty, and just feel that sense of freedom and joy, these are some of the things we really need to learn to do. And I think you're right. Actually, when you take away the male element and just surround yourself with women, aiming to attract like-minded women, like we say, who elevate each other, then it takes away a little bit of that sense of competition to actually allow you to feel free to be you.
Yes, exactly. And we want everybody. Here's the cool thing: every person on this planet has a gift to this planet. We all have a unique DNA. We are all a gift. And, sometimes we don't know what our gifts are. But the cool thing is that you have so much to give to people around you, to humanity and the planet. And so, what we want to be able to help people do is to empower that, right? Help them embrace their own, being who they are, right? You're good enough. You're good enough just the way you are.
So what would you say to people who, okay, Fem Foundry sounds amazing, but you know what, I'm so busy already. I'm busy with my job. I'm already tied up with, I've got to do work on LinkedIn, and I'm busy on Facebook, and I'm, trawl through Instagram come midnight because I can't get to sleep as I'm trying to wind down. It's actually the worst thing you could do, but all those typical things. Why is someone going to then join another platform?
Well, I think when you start to look at, and I don't know if you've run into this, but I know I have on both Facebook and LinkedIn, where I get stalked, and I've been threatening to get off of Facebook many times. I barely use Instagram. I'm to the point that there's more advertisement than there is anything of value to me, and I'm getting to that point with Facebook as well. So LinkedIn, yes, I use it for business. It's very helpful, but I'd rather, instead of doing Facebook selfies and show off pictures of my travel and my food and my a beautiful picture of myself, I'd rather be on a platform that gives me information that helps me, things that I could learn from, meet other women that I admire and I'd like to get to know. I'd rather have that kind of place where I would spend my time. So, and a lot of these social media networks are going to start to split off and niche off because they have become so huge that things that are coming through my feed, I don't even have time to manage or shut off. So to the point that I'd rather not be bombarded by, you know, by this, by me, all these other things that are kind of flooding it. But I would rather, and I really enjoy meeting different women around the world and how they're living their lives and things that they're doing. For me, that's the education of self improvement for myself in many regards, because we're all chasing the same thing. I mean, we're all chasing love and happiness, and everybody's battle or everybody's lives and things that are in their community, they're all different and unique, but at the end of the day, we're all chasing the same thing. We want our kids to be happy, educated. We want to be able to eat great food, and we want to be able to have a roof over our head, and we want to be happy. So
Yeah, which is that, it's that element of freedom again. And it's interesting what you said about the ads, actually, and you get the same with the email lists, right? I'm very mindful when I email people. I always want to give value. I want to show them something. If it's a link to something I think is going to help them, or I think it's going to teach them, or I think it's going to give them insight, rather than just bombarding them with all this nonsense a lot of the time and covering it up with what it is. So the Facebook, I use Facebook, but I post more than I participate, which maybe isn't really sort of playing the game and being fair enough. But it's like you say, the endless ads that pop up, and you just want to ignore them, really.
yeah, yeah. I will with my emails. I mean, I go through such a delete, 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 and I'm always fearful I'm going to miss an important message. But people who know me, right? I mean, they WhatsApp me. And so if it's important, I get pinged that way. But I am to the point where I get tired of the stalkiness on Facebook and LinkedIn. It's almost like you feel like you want to trust again so badly, and then it's stalkery, and then you.
Tell us a little bit about the trust and where that comes from in your background.
Oh yes. So um so I was raped as a child at the age of 5, and by somebody in our church, and it was in our house, and my mother was upstairs making the bed, and I was downstairs, and I remember it. I actually blocked it out of my head until I was 21, and then I had these reoccurring dreams, and I asked my mother about it, and she said that that was true, and I was describing it down to the detail, and she said that exactly did happen. And so and I think for most of my life I always felt like, I was, boys were always trying to get me to take my clothes off, or it was always a struggle, to try to um um you know everything seemed to be about sex, for me as a kid growing up, whether it was, if I didn't have sex with somebody, they were going to die, right? I mean, it was always that kind of stuff, and I was exhausted by it. And but so my trust levels were difficult, because I truly believed in fairness, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't play football unless I took my clothes off, right? So I believed in fairness. I thought we were all equal, but it wasn't that way. And then I saw it in the workplace too, right? You work with a lot of men, right? They hit on you a lot, and it becomes exhausting. You try to laugh it off, or but when it happens so often, you just kind of get in the space of anger. And then I was married, and I had sexual abuse in my marriage as well. So it seemed like whenever I would try to trust, and especially working with men in the environment in the work environment, I mean, it was really hard to trust, because they were so competitive, and, it just was, something I would come across quite often, and it was exhausting. And so that's why I feel very strongly, if there were more women at the table, more women, in the environment, that they wouldn't be able to behave that way, because it would not be acceptable. But
Yeah.
I came up through the years where there were lawsuits, right? I mean, there were lawsuits on how men were behaving. And today you don't see a lot of that stuff going on, not like we did back in the 90s. So today it is so much more civil. I mean, completely. But back then, it really wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, I know here in the UK a couple of years back now, it all came out in terms of politicians, and suddenly all these women started speaking up about what was happening. Yeah, certainly in the world of politics, and how they didn't feel they had a voice or could say anything because they were working with these powerful figures, but they all kind of came together, and it's an example of what happens when you actually unite, how much more strength we can have.
Right. Individually, it's hard to take it on. It really is, because um, but the thing is probably the statistics for women who have been, raped or molested is probably like 3 out of 4. It's high. It's so much more than anybody could have a clue about knowing, quite frankly.
Mm. So
Um,
from my own experience, and again, you and I talked about this. I was 12 when I was sexually abused, and from a family member, and again the same thing. Completely blocked it out, because actually it was the only way I could then cope with it until my 20s. It didn't come back as some kind of massive trauma. It just came back, and it was like, oh wow, oh actually that is real, that really did happen. Which of course is what the human brain does. It will block something out until you are able to cope with the trauma. So yeah, and so that can be with anything, and I'm sure people can relate to that who may be listening. But it took me 30 years, I think, really, to finally say it's not okay. And I wasn't not just talking about the sex side, but actually I noticed anything where I would allow my boundaries to be overstepped.
Yeah.
Of course, and that was that ultimately it was about me and my love for myself and my lack of, well, the lack of that and the lack of 100% belief and the lack of forgiveness. And while I was a very, very successful career woman, inside there was obviously this deep hatred of myself for letting it happen. And suddenly learning to, well, that's part of the empowering process, to say it's not okay. It really isn't. Yeah, and that may be, it could be anything to do with work, to do with home life. Like we said, we're not talking about sexual stuff now, but just to say, actually, that behavior is not all right. So when we become empowered, in power, when we stand in who we are, when we do the work on ourselves and believe in who we are and our strength and our abilities as individuals and united, our strength just, it emanates, it goes off the curve. But it's worth doing that work, taking the time, as you said, slow down, be curious, be open, because you can stay on the treadmill the whole time, but that treadmill isn't going anywhere.
No, it's not exactly. It's going to continue to go round and round and round. And it's a numbing agent, right? I mean, we have tons of these numbing agents, whether it's drugs or alcohol or shopping or whatever, sugar. I mean, there's tons of numbing agents for us to be able to numb ourselves when we're not happy. And and this is what I love about COVID. I think it's Mother Nature sent us all back to our room to think about our lives, right? And I think a lot of people are coming out with a big change, recognizing that what I was doing before didn't make me happy.
Yeah, and something in my life needs to change. Or who is this person who I'm waking up next to every day? Or, oh, I didn't notice that about my kids before. And or actually some of them will go the opposite, that they realize how much they love their jobs.
Yeah.
But it's certainly been, and you see, you and I see it because you're already at that state of being, you already resonate at the higher frequency, so you see it as an opportunity. I know when COVID hit for me, I was asked, well, what do you think of it? And I said, for me, it's a gift. It was a gift to be able to slow down because I was working so hard again. But I mean, but it's all right for me to say that, and I'm comfortable enough financially and so on. But of course, for a lot of people, it's created a huge amount of stress, a huge amount of fear, a huge amount of worry, and they're so packed up in that state of stress, they can't shift themselves out of it. And I think if I was going to get offer them one tiny thing of a daily practice, would be what you said, would be the gratitude. Because as much as you're overwhelmed and surrounded by everything that's being done to you, recognize that sometimes there's an opportunity for it to be done for you. And just start with gratitude. Just start with that daily practice to realize actually the tiny things. I'm grateful for the fact the sun came up today.
Exactly. Exactly.
So it's very it can be a challenge, and I think the general gist of what we've been talking about is that no one's saying it's easy, but if you're prepared to do it, it's so worthwhile.
Yeah. The thing is that we shouldn't make it, this shouldn't be hard. This isn't like a chore, right? This is like, and even if you have to like sit down, I have a vision book. I have it sitting here next to me. I started it right after I went through my divorce because for the first time I felt like I didn't have a voice for so long. It was an interesting article I had read about Jane Fonda when she was married to Ted Turner, about how she lost her voice, when she married him. And I was thinking, gosh, that's exactly how I feel as well. Like I couldn't really, at the time he couldn't have children, so the opportunity for me to be a mother was not there. So I felt like I couldn't live where I really wanted to. I couldn't have the career I really wanted to. I was really feeling like I was just his accessory, like I was there to wash his clothes and put food on the table you know, and do the wham bam thank you ma'am. So I really struggled with that a lot. And, and so I think that was a little bit of when after the divorce, I started this book because for the first time, I felt like I could dream. Like I had choices. Because before I really didn't have any. Um, and that was such a powerful thing for me. I was really overwhelmed with it. So I figured so this when I put this book together, and I would glue all these pictures in the back, and then I would make all these lists in the front, like, where would I like to live? What places would I like to see? Who would I like to meet? What kind of jobs, or what would my daily activity be like? Or, what are the 100 things that I love? I mean, I just started creating all these lists to get closer on things that made me happy. Um, and and then in the back, I had glued all these pictures, and they were all kinds of things from like powerful statements, or maybe it was a city I wanted to visit or whatever. So, and a cute little story is I was in Barcelona with a friend of mine, and we were on the rooftop of the Ritz Carlton, and I stood there going immediately like, "Oh my gosh, I've been here. I have never been here, but I've been here." Like, it was like one of those deja vu moment. And of course, when I got home, I opened my book, and the picture was there. That's 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 why I had that moment. But
Yeah,
it's a
visioning is, I
powerful
think,
thing to do.
one of my favorite exercises to put people through, because especially when you engage in the feeling of that vision, of how good it feels to be there, or to have that, or to experience that. And actually, I'll put a link again in the comments for it's in there in the description for the video that I call the 5-minute switch fix. And again, it's a visioning exercise that literally switches from where you are now to where you want to be, and just takes you through all of those aspects of your life. What are the relationships you're having? What do they look like? Who's around you? How easy are things? What's your environment? Just like your vision book. And then switch. You can get there. You really can. Visioning is so powerful.
Oh,
And scripting is another way to do it, because obviously you have your vision. You may have your vision board or your vision book, but you can just script, just get creative, just as a journaling exercise, to just no holds barred, and just describe a topic. This is what my business is going to look like, and just get writing. And actually, because when you write, you tap into your subconscious. Actually, you start tapping into what it is you truly want, rather than thinking about it. So you've just got to write and write nonstop, and then read it back to yourself. And a lot of the time you'll think, well, where did that come from? But it can be a very, very powerful tool, that scripting exercise. So I script about once a week about a different thing. I just go all out. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna write about my relationships now, or I'm just gonna write about my family life, or you know what, I'm gonna write about my business this week. And sometimes I read what I'm writing, and I think this is just outrageous. I think just go with it, because it came from somewhere. Just keep on going.
And that's the hard part, because sometimes I did this exercise with a girlfriend of mine, and the hard part is that you're hesitant to write it down because you feel like, okay, it could happen. I mean, there's like this fear of, I'm not sure that's what I really want, but because it's the creepiest thing, but it's so true. I mean, you have to just write down anything.
Yeah, and actually, but that's a very important way to tap into and to use your intuition. And actually, funnily enough, I just had published an article about this, about how we have to use our intuition for things like that. And I think I used an example of, you want your business to be really busy, so you envisage your diary to be really full, and for you that translates to more money, freedom, etc., etc. But you've held on to that vision, but actually it's not happening. Why isn't it happening? And actually, in your heart of hearts, you don't want to be that busy. You want the sense of freedom, you want the money, but you don't want it to come that way. So actually,
Right.
when you use your intuition, when you actually were open, curious, slowed down, asked the questions, you realized that you would have felt it somewhere in your body, that would have filled you with some anxiety, and thought, actually, that isn't really what you want. You need to sidetrack a little bit. And basically that's the unblocking process, that's the releasing process. That's, again, it's about raising your vibe to that higher level of energy, to that level of being, so that you can use those intuitive thoughts to recognize it.
I love intuition. I love it. and it's as soon as I don't trust my gut, it's horrible. I mean, it's probably one of the best features of being a woman, I think, is the gut intuition. It's like one of those things that are included in that whole EQ space, but it is such a gift. And when you can be quiet enough to trust it and to listen to it, and because you're right, a lot of times people feel like if they're busy all the time, that makes them look successful. Like I'm really busy. People need me. But it's really important to.
Yeah, but what about the I need me? And
Yeah.
We forget about that. But it's what you said about the intuition. I know I did a couple of TV interviews in the States, actually, just about that topic, about can men have intuition? Can women have intuition? And actually, we are wired differently. So it comes from, it's where we are more balanced with how we can use both sides of our brain. And the intuition comes from much more from the left side of the brain. And whereas men will tend to be more one or the other. And therefore potentially not quite as able. So yes, we do. We have an edge in terms of our wiring. But actually, if you like intuition, I'll go to my website. And actually, it's the free sign up is an intuitive training exercise. It's a 5-minute daily exercise. That it's a special technique that I've developed that gets you there straight away to tap into your intuition and get the guidance that you need. I absolutely love it. I have so many people who say it just helps them so much because, again, where we're busy, we often don't have time for like 10-minute, 15-minute meditations. My mind is distracted. This totally keeps your focus and gets you there. And again, yes, I mean, the power of women, intuition is definitely one of them.
Yep.
So listen, we want people to sign up for Fem Foundry, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Where do people go?
Yeah, so you can go to Android or iOS and look for Fem Foundry. You can also go to the website www.fem-foundry.com. You can sign up there and download the mobile app. And put in your profile, bring your business, bring your, bring your talent, right? And then also if they sign up for Hera, which is www.heracity, one word, HERACITY.org.
Brilliant. Okay, heracity.org or fem-found, dash meaning a hyphen, right? As horizontal line. Yeah. Foundry.com, you said?
Yes.
.com. Okay, and I will be sure to put that all in the commentary as well, or go download the apps. I mean, what an opportunity. And I'm going to put all my stuff in there. What more could you want?
Change the world. Yes, we are.
Yes. Mary, it's been such a pleasure talking to you today. We know we will continue this conversation off air and many times to come. But thank you so much for your time today. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed sharing my story with you. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. A very powerful story. Very, very powerful. Okay, so that is all we have time for. So be sure to take a look at those links. God, we shared so many opportunities with you today, so take advantage of them and definitely go sign up. But these are my last 3 final words to you for now. So I am Dr. Rana Al-Falaki. Be free, be fun, be fearless. Bye-bye for now. Feel on top of the world with Light Changes Coaching. Do you feel like burying your head in the sand, hoping it will all be fine when you come out? Do you know what you want, but no idea how to get it? Are you stuck on the treadmill, repeating the same old patterns, wishing the answers would just be there for you? How great would it feel to have those answers right there in the palm of your hand? Well, did you know that there is a way to get immediate answers, fast resolution of inner problems, and quick access to a higher state of awareness? After 20 years of helping people, I have perfected a special technique that allows you to tap into your intuition. Connect with your intuition in just 5 minutes a day using this special technique, Dr. Rana's gift technique, the guided intuition and fulfillment training, and you can have those light bulb moments every day. So get what you want, a job that gets you excited when you get up in the morning, a relationship where you can look across the table and think how much you love that person, a body that you're proud to have and look in the mirror and absolutely love, a bank balance that you're not afraid to look at. My gift to you is simple, quick technique to access your intuition and give you the instant answers you need to get unstuck without having to do lengthy meditations. So head on over right now to lightchangescoaching.com